Hi there, this is Catherine with Enfolded Heart Music. Welcome back to Lyre Foundations. Today we're going to be continuing part 2, chapter 4, and we will be looking at lesson 3. This is covering time signatures and note and restoration. You could think of this as the rhythm chapter or the rhythm lesson, and it's sort of the second most important lesson in addition to lesson 2, which we covered last time. So let's start with an overview of what we're going to be talking about, and then we'll go one step at a time. All right, so we're going to take a look again at lesson 3, time signatures and note/restorations. We're now shifting away from the question of what do I play, which was the first 2 lessons of this chapter, and now moving into when do I play. You could also say for how long do I play. Both of those are applicable for this section. Like I said a moment ago, this is really, in conjunction with lesson 2, this is really the most important lesson and is again one that you're probably going to need to come back and review as you get into reading sheet music more and more. Again, there are many other supplemental videos that you can find on YouTube. There's some really great music teachers out there. So I will teach you it in the best way that I can. But again, it's sometimes really helpful to find different perspectives that explain the same material just to see which one sort of lands best for you, and maybe they just really complement each other. All of them together is really what you need, especially, again, if this is your first time learning music. This is going to be quite a lot of information, but I hope it's a really good asset for you and a really helpful thing to at least get you going. If you have any questions, or if I can help you in any other way, feel free to reach out, and I'll do my best to communicate in the ways that we have available to us. All right, so the first thing that we're going to be doing, excuse me, we're starting on page 56 of the book. We're going to be just talking about the structure of things like the measures, basically the staff. We've talked about parts of it, but this is all in relation to pitch, that is what we play. We want to now look at sort of the timeline of the staff and understand the different structures of this aspect of music. We're going to then shift to understanding just different types of notes and types of rests. They really correlate one with each other, so what they look like and what they mean, what they're telling us to do in regards to how long to play the note or how long to rest. After that, we will shift to these types of notes in different time signatures. So I'll explain what time signature is on a very, very basic level. And we're only going to go over 3 time signatures. They're from my perspective, probably the most common ones. It's 4/4 time, 3/4 time, and 6/8 time. So I'll go over that with you. And then looking at different examples of these notes within these different time signatures. And then I'll go over a couple of examples to help you with this. We'll use a metronome, so make sure you have a metronome, which I'll explain that also in a moment. And then, of course, there's lots of practice for you. So that's very generally the content of this lesson. We're going to take it step by step. And again, feel free to supplement this and go back to it over and over as you're trying to understand different rhythms in the particular song that you are learning. So let's first take a look at the staff. We're going to pause for a moment and get yourself set up. Again, we're on page 56. We're going to take a look at the image on the bottom of that page first. All right, so let's take a look at the staff and understand some of the basic structure of the staff in addition to what we've already learned in regards to pitch in our last 2 lessons. Again, go ahead and take a look and read through these definitions that are on page 56. I will sort of summarize them, but they're the most clear way that I could explain each one of these concepts, and they're going to be more thorough and a nice complement to the video. So let's take a look at this image on the bottom of page 56. There's really not too much to talk about here, but I want to make sure that it's clear. There's three primary things I want you to be able to understand and to know. 4, I'm sorry, I didn't see that 4th one. It's a small one. The first is simply where the time signature is located. We haven't talked about what that is yet, but you need to know where it is. It's going to be on the left-hand side of the staff on every line. It'll be right after the key signature. So we talked about key signature last time. The time signature will be right after that. If the key is in the key of C major or A minor, there's going to be no sharps or flats. And so you'll just have your clef, and then right after that will be your time signature. So that's what those numbers indicate right there. The next thing to know is what a bar line is. A bar line is simply, and it's pointed here on these bottom two in particular, it's a line that divides the music into what's called measures. Sometimes these measures are also called bars. Like you'd say, oh, play the first 4 bars of that song. And what you're really saying is play those first 4 measures. So this is just a way of to divide up music. Now the way in which it's divided up, we're going to talk about in a few sections from now. In this lesson, but in a few sections from now. But you just need to know what we're even talking about, the space in the staff that we're talking about. So you have bars, and you'll have bars all throughout music. If you've got a piece of music in front of you, take a look at that and just notice, okay, there are the bars. They're going to go through both staffs, both the treble and the bass, or in the cases where you have 2 treble clefs, both treble clefs. It'll go right through both of them and through that gap between the 2. And in between these bar lines, that space in between them is called 1 bar. Okay, so you have a first bar, a second bar, a third bar, etc. And then the last thing to note is just these little numbers that are indicated. It's on each one of these examples. It says 14, 55, and 23. Those are just your measure numbers. Excuse me. A lot of times each measure is not going to be numbered because it's just kind of too much stuff in the sheet music. You want to make it as clean as possible. So oftentimes you will only have that measure number at the beginning of each line, and what you would do from that number is you would count, say I'm 3 bars from the left hand side of that line, and I see that the left hand side says that this first measure right here on that line is 23. Then the next measure over I know is measure 24. The third measure over is going to be 25, 26, 27, etc. You can sort of double check yourself by counting over on a line, and then when you move to the next line down, whatever number you're at as you're counting up should match the little measure number that's indicated on that next line. Okay, and these are numbered just starting at 1 and going all the way through. And this is just a helpful aid to communicating. I do this a lot in my walkthrough tutorials where I'll say, okay, we're on measure 8 through 12. That's the first part of this piece, and so this is just being able to tell you this is the chunk of music that we're talking about. So that's where that's located and how to utilize that. Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and pause here because it's a little bit of a different topic. Go ahead and read page 57, and then I'm going to talk about the chart that's on page 57 and into 58. This is going to be looking at types of notes and types of rests. So once you've read through pages 56 and 57, go ahead and come back, and then you'll be ready to watch the video. Okay, so we're going to begin with page 57, looking at the chart here on 57. Then we'll move to 58 in a moment. But I have 2 different sides of this chart. Basically, we've got notes on one side and rests on the other side. Notes is when you play, rests is when you don't play. And so, in short, each note indicates a certain length of time that you are to play that particular pitch. So again, we've talked before about pitch. Which note do I play on the lyre, which is indicated by the lines and the spaces. But then we need to know how long to hold that note or to allow it to ring, and also when to play that note. All right. And so these different note symbols and rest symbols give us that second piece of information. So for example, you could have a whole note on any space on any line. You could have a half note on any space, any line, etc. It does not tell you which note to play. It only tells you how long or when to play that note. Okay, that distinction is really, really important. Okay, so let's take a look rather succinctly at this chart. Again, sit with it, take your time with it, and then compare it to other music that you're already working with. That's really the best way to go about just about any of the content in this book, actually, is learn the concept. This is very conceptual. I'm explaining really the theory behind the way in which music works. But then we need to look at, well, what does this mean in context, and helps to put everything together. Okay, so we've got the whole note at the top, and what I've done is I've shown you what that symbol looks like isolated, and then I've shown you it's kind of small. I apologize for that. It printed a little smaller than I thought, but you can see then what it looks like on the staff. And again, it can be on any line or any space. Okay, we're not going to talk about how long each note is held for the moment. We're just looking at symbols, because how long it's held depends on the time signature. Okay, we then have a half note, which has the open kind of white space in what's called the note head, and it has a stem. And so it's kind of nice to compare this to the whole note, because both of those are open, but the whole note doesn't have a stem, whereas the half note does. Now you can see that the stem can go either up or down. It depends on where it is on the staff. It's just a pragmatic thing. But it indicates the same thing. We then have a quarter note, which looks like a half note, is just filled in the middle. We then have eighth notes. Eighth notes and 16th notes, which are the last two on this part of the chart. It's helpful to notice that the way in which they are written is slightly different depending on how many you have. So if you have just one eighth note or one 16th note, you'll have that little flag in there. But if you have more than one, you don't have multiple eighth notes or multiple 16th notes using just those flags. Rather, you connect them with a bar or a double bar in the case of 16th notes. They are the same thing. They indicate the same thing. It's just a cleaner way to write it in the sheet music. Okay. We then move to rest symbols. Probably should put my lyre down. I keep strumming it by accident. And these correlate with the note symbols in regards to duration, which I'll talk about in a moment. So the rest symbol, we're at the top right now. That whole rest, this is always placed on the second to top line. Let me count that. Sorry, that's the fourth line. 1, 2, 3. The fourth line, and it hangs down underneath that line. So what you actually should notice on the staff for both the whole rest and the half rest is that there's sort of a box, and then there's like a line on top of it or a line below it in the case of half rest. You don't actually see those lines when it's on the staff. It looks like just a little rectangle box underneath, or a rectangle box above in the case, again, of half rests. So just so that you know it. But if we're drawing it just by itself, it does have that kind of line. A nice way to remember the difference in symbols is the whole rest looks like a hole, like it hangs underneath the line, whereas a half rest kind of looks like a hat, where it sits on top. Like if it sits on top of your head, it sits on top of that line. So that's whole rest and half rest. You then have quarter rests, which I don't know how to describe that. It's just sort of a funny little symbol. Again, this correlates with the quarter note in regards to duration. And then we have 8th rest and 16th rest. All right. So get familiar with those. Also, maybe mark this page so that you can remember, oh, when I see that symbol, this is what it's called, and we'll talk in a moment about what it actually means. All right, we're flipping the page to page 68. These next two, they're both dotted notes and then triplets. These are more advanced, but I included them because they are very common, and I sort of figured, well, if I use them in my music, then I need to teach them as well. And I use both of these quite a lot. They're just more advanced rhythms, because they're a little bit more difficult to sort of get your finger on, and to sort of feel the beat within them. But they're very fun and create a lot of interest in the music. So I just wanted to, again, introduce what these look like in both the notes and the rests. So we have at the top dotted notes. So you can see that the dot goes with the note directly to the left of it. So we have the dotted 18th note, the dotted quarter note, the dotted half note, and the dotted whole note. I would say by far the most common kind of dotted note is a dotted half quarter note. I don't honestly know if I have ever seen a dotted whole note, but it's not impossible by any means. Okay, I'm going to stay on this horizontal line and shift over to the rests. You can see that for dotted rests, they work the same way. You simply add a dot to that particular rest, kind of straightforward there. So we have, again, a dotted eighth rest, a dotted quarter rest, a dotted half rest, and a dotted whole rest. The dotted rests are not quite as common, but they are used, and it's important to know what those are called, again, so that we can recognize them sort of later in the game. All right, and then finally we have what's called triplets. Now, in short, what a triplet is, I'm going to venture a little bit forward and then we'll come back, but essentially a triplet is where you put 3 notes within a certain period of time, a certain period of beats, where you would normally have 1 beat or 2 beats usually. And this is indicated, what you need to know, if that didn't make any sense, that's okay. Really all you need to know is that this is indicated in a couple of different ways. It can be indicated by a little 3 above a grouping of 3, whether it's 3 eighth notes or 3 quarter notes. That's usually the 2 types of notes that are grouped into triplets. Usually there's not just a 3, because that can be confused with a fingering number, though the 3 of the triplet is usually a little bit bigger than a fingering number. But I've most commonly seen it in this second form where there's a little bracket. Now it can be either above or below. Any of these can be above or below. Any of these examples of the 3 on the triplet, I should say. It depends on how high that note is on the staff. So that's, again, the most common way. It really indicates, okay, these 3 notes are in a triplet fashion. They should be played in a triplet fashion. This is not a fingering note, a fingering number, or anything else like that. Then the third way that I've seen it indicated is with a curved line rather than a bracket. Almost like a little slur line, but a bit different. And then again with a 3 above it. Okay. So if you see a larger 3 on the music, then you're probably looking at a triplet. Okay, if we're looking at examples of rests in triplets, there's no such thing as a triplet rest, because a triplet, for example, if we have a triplet that is dividing 1 beat in 4/4 time, 1 beat into 3 notes, or three even sections, 3 even parts, you're not going to indicate that you rest during that as resting in a triplet. You're actually going to indicate that you're just resting for that 1 quarter beat. So you'd use a quarter rest to do that. Okay. So really what the sort of therefore point of this little section, this last part of this chart here, is that if you see a rest within a triplet section, a triplet grouping, you will always have at least 1 note present in there. You will never have all rests within a triplet. That wouldn't make sense notation-wise to do that. And so I've got 4 different examples of what this could, potentially look like. 2 of them are the same. But here we have 4 beats, and each of those 1 beats has been broken up into a triplet. And so in this first little section where you see the bracket with the 3, you can see 3 eighth beats. 1 has a note in it, and then 2 of them have rests. And so this would indicate that that first note gets only the duration of 1 triplet within a quarter note, or within a single beat. And then you rest on those other 2 beats. That second example shows, of course, that you play the first and the third beat of the triplet, but not the second beat. And that's indicated by an eighth rest. And if you can't quite see that, I'm not sure how your printing is. That is, those little rests in there are simply eighth rests in there. They look exactly the same, and they indicate the same type of thing, even though they're within a triplet structure. Okay, and then the third example simply shows having 2 rests at the beginning of the triplet section and playing on that last triplet note. Okay. So right now, to move on, you don't need to know what everything is in regards to, like, what does this mean? How long do I play this? What was she saying about the triplets? All you need to know is what they look like. That's all I'm trying to introduce in this particular section. What they look like, what they're called. And it's helpful to know, for example, what a whole rest looks like and what a whole note looks like, because those durations are going to match up. Same thing with like a quarter note and a quarter rest. So just, again, get yourself familiar with that aspect of it, just knowing what the symbols are, what their names are, so that when I speak about it or when somebody else speaks about it or you read about it elsewhere, you're able to follow along a lot more easily. And when you feel pretty comfortable with that, then we're going to go through the duration of these notes within certain time signatures. So come back when you're ready for that. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at time signatures. In this particular section, I'm going to just explain what time signatures are, and then we'll go through each of the 3 different time signatures that we're focusing on for this course: 4/4, 3/4, and 6/8. Again, really just the very basics, what you need to know in order to get going on reading music. Not a lot of the theory behind it, but again, if you'd like to learn more about that, there's lots of places to do that. Then we'll take a pause and we'll come back and we'll basically put the last section and this section together. And we will go through whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, and 16th notes in each of these time signatures. Because in order to understand one, you have to understand the other. And so we've broken them apart in this last section and then this current section, and then we'll put them together so that it will make even more sense in the section following this. I'll take a moment also to talk about triplets and dotted notes, but I will mostly illustrate that in the examples again, because those are a little bit more advanced. And also, I would take a look at tutorials that I have where I'm walking through a particular song and it's got triplets or dotted notes in there, and that will also give a really good example of how those actually work in practice. Okay. All right, so let's start with just looking at what time signatures are. So in every time signature, you've got 2 numbers. The numbers are always going to be the same in both hands, the treble and the bass, or treble and treble if we're talking about just lyre music. Okay. They indicate the same thing. It's just that they're repeated in both of those. Now, most times a time signature does not change in the middle of a piece, but it can. It's not, the most unusual thing in the world, but it is definitely less common than it otherwise would be. But essentially, all you need to know is that in all time signatures, the top number, for example, 4, 3, and 6, they indicate how many beats need to be in each measure. We'll talk about what that means in a moment. How many beats are in each measure? So in 4/4 time, there are 4 beats in each measure. In 3/4 time, there are 3 beats in each measure. And in 6/8 time, there are 6 beats in each measure. The bottom number, 4, 4, and 8, indicate the type of note that gets 1 beat. So let's look at this in context so that we can see what this means. All right, so in 4/4 time, we're just looking at page 58. Again, go ahead and read this top section here. But what we can see, we're just going to use quarter notes for these examples. For this first one, 4/4. 4/4 is sort of the standard time. It's actually, you can notice this in the way that the notes are named. For example, a quarter note is called a quarter note because in 4/4 time, the duration of it is 1/4 or 1/4 of the whole measure. Same thing like with a half note. The duration of that is 2 beats, or 2 half of the measure in 4/4 time only. So it's sort of the standard way of not of writing music, but the standard time signature is kind of the building block from everything else. Okay, so in 4/4 time, the quarter note is going to get 1 beat. That's what the 4 on the bottom indicates. The quarter note gets 1 beat. And so if the quarter note, looking at this example, if the quarter note gets 1 beat, and we have to have the top number 4 beats in each measure, then we have to have 4 quarter notes in a measure. You cannot have more or less than 4 beats in a 4/4 time signature. You have to have exactly 4 beats. You can do this in a combination of all sorts of different types of notes. Looking at the ones that we looked at a moment ago, you can combine those in many different ways, but the beats have to equal 4. All right? And so, for example, looking at these 4 quarter notes, just to make this very simple math, if I know that a quarter note gets 1 beat, then I add 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. That must equal 4. When I add all the beats up in the measure, it must equal 4, and it does. So in 4/4 time, just to review, there are 4 beats within a measure. So within each bar, there has to be 4 beats, and 1 beat is a quarter note. A quarter note is what gets 1 full beat. Okay? We'll review this in a second as we go through the different types of notes. Then we're looking at 3/4. 3/4 is very similar to 4/4, except in 3/4, we have only 3 beats per measure. So again, within each bar, there has to be exactly 3 beats. Now, what type of note gets 1 beat in this kind of time signature? Well, there's also a 4 at the bottom, just like there was in 4/4 time. And so this indicates that the quarter note gets 1 beat. So this means that instead of having 4 quarter notes in each measure, because that would equal 4, we have to have only 3. We must limit ourselves to 3 quarter notes in each measure, because we must limit ourselves to 3 beats in each measure. Now, you might, sort of wonder, okay, why are time signatures important in the first place? What difference does it make to have 4 notes, 4 beats in a measure versus 3 beats? Well, the difference is actually quite large, because we emphasize sort of a different beat on each of these, and the way in which the music is divided will create a different feel and be appropriate for different types of music. I've mentioned this before in a video quite a long time ago, but for 4/4 time and for 3/4 time, you tend to emphasize, musically speaking, the first beat. But each of these beats gets an equal, certainly in equal time, and they're kind of evenly spread out compared to something like 6/8, for example. But what that means is that for 4/4 time, this is actually much more common for things like marches, and because you have something like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It has a very steady feel to it, almost a driving force in some ways in some types of 4/4 songs. There's not a lot of swing to the song. Okay, so that's how a 4/4 timed piece would sound: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you're going to have different types of rhythms within that, but it will still be, you'll still feel each of those 4 beats. Okay. In 3/4 time, it's the same thing, except what happens when we make this 3 beats instead of 4 beats? Well, you get a little bit more of a sway to it. You'd get 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Again, you emphasize, generally speaking, the first beat of a 3/4 time measure. And so let's hear this again. For 4/4, it sounds like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 3/4 sounds 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Again, in musically speaking, you will feel each of those beats, which is different, for example, in 6/8 time. But you emphasize that first beat, and 3/4 again has a little bit more of a swing to it. A lot of minuets are 3/4 time. Waltzes are typically 3/4 time. Those type of more classical types of dance styles tend to be in 3/4 time because it has a little bit more of a swing or a sway to it. Okay, so that's 4/4 versus 3/4 time. Again, all you need to know is that the top number tells you, all right, we got to have 4 beats in each measure in 4/4 time. In 3/4 time, we've got to have 3 beats in each measure. The bottom note tells me that a quarter note equals 1 beat. Okay. Now for 6/8 time, I'm introducing this. This is a little bit more of a complicated time signature, but I'm introducing it because it is very commonly used. And again, I felt like, well, if it's something that I use in my music, I need to also then teach it if that's what I'm trying to help people be able to do and be able to read. Okay. So mathematically speaking, 6/8 and 3/4 are essentially the same because 3 times 2 is 6 and 4 times 2 is 8. But the emphasis on the beats is different. All right. So I'll illustrate that in a moment, but let's just look at the numbers first. So we have 6 at the top. The top number always tells us how many beats do I have in each measure. 6. I have to have 6. Now the bottom number is now 8 instead of 4. So instead of quarter notes equaling 1 beat, if that were the case and we had 6/4, then we would have 6 beats of quarter notes in each measure. But since it's 8, this actually tells us that an 8th note gets 1 beat. Okay? And so that means that we can have 6/8 notes in one measure or divide those up into other types of rhythms. But it has to equal 6, and we must know that the 8th note gets 1 beat. Okay. Now what this does is it is not simply a faster version of 3/4 time, because in 3/4 time you have 3 major beats: 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Whereas in 6/8 time you actually have 2 major beats. You have 1 and 4. We have a total of 6 beats: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But you can see even in the way that these 8th notes are divided, you see they're grouped in 2 groups of 3. We have 3 8th notes, and then we don't have a bar, and then we have a second grouping of 3, okay? And you can see even in the way visually it looks that we actually want to emphasize the 1 beat and the 4 beat. So rather than having every beat be even in the sense of the emphasis, you want them to be even tempo-wise. But in regards to the emphasis, which would sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nice and just sort of flat. Rather than having that, you actually have them grouped in 2. So it sounds rather like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when you're listening to a piece, if you're hearing a measure where it emphasizes, it's grouped in 2s: 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 6/8 time. If you are hearing a piece where you actually hear more of 3 beats: 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, that's 3/4 time. Now, it might be hard for you to hear the difference in that, but you just need to know there's a little bit of the theory behind it. And really all you actually need to know to be able to read this music is that you've got to have 6 beats in each measure. And rather than a quarter note getting 1 beat, the 8th note is going to get 1 beat. That's really all you actually need to know to be able to move forward. But I'm trying to give you a little bit more context to help situate all this knowledge into a broader and more comprehensive picture. Okay. So make sure that you understand what that top number and bottom number indicate in each of these 3 types of time signatures. And come back, we're going to talk about each type of note in these different time signatures. Okay, let's go ahead and put all this information together and see if we can help it make a little bit more sense here. Okay, you've kind of got a number of pieces separated because we needed to talk about each section, each aspect. Now we're going to put it together in context. What we're going to do is take a look at each time signature individually and kind of go down that column. So we'll look at the 4/4 time and go down that column, 3/4 time, that column, 6/8 time, that column. Okay. So, and I would encourage you at this point to go ahead and take out a metronome. There's free metronome apps all over the place, just a very simple one. I'm going to have mine set to 100 BPM, which stands for beats per minute. 2 things you want to make sure of. One is that, well, actually really only one thing. So, because I've already told you one, that I have it on 100 beats per minute. And you want to make sure that you've got you're in 4/4 time. For mine, it just says beats equals, and then it has a number. You want that to be 4, because we're going to start in 4/4 time. Now, it may sound in two different ways. It may emphasize the first beat, if it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or it may not, and you just have everything sounding the same. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to have it change pitch on that first one so that we can help distinguish between these three different time signatures. Okay, so in 4/4 time, let's first look at our whole note. This is a closer up picture of what a whole note looks like on the staff, which is nice. In short, a whole note will get 4 beats. Okay? Well, in 4/4 time, we can only have 4 beats in a measure. And so anytime you have a whole note in 4/4 time, it's the only note that's allowed in there. Now, you might have a chord where you play multiple notes at the same time, but you're going to hold that just for 4 beats. In parentheses, the number in parentheses just indicates that you hold it through those, okay, through those beats. So, if I were to just play this on my lyre, I may say hold it because I'm used to explaining this on the piano, which you would hold it down. But for the lyre, you just simply let it ring. So let's play 4 whole notes together. We'll count off. I'll play it on a C. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's a whole note. Pretty simple. We then move to half notes. Now, half notes in 4/4 time get 2 beats. And again, this is shown with the parentheses, showing that the first half note will span the duration of the first and the second beat in 4/4 time. And then the second half note will span the duration of the third and the fourth beat in 4/4 time. In 4/4 time, again, we have to have 4 beats in each measure. And if a half note gets 2 beats, I can only have a maximum of 2 half notes in a measure, because 2 plus 2 is 4. If I had 3 half notes, I'd be at 6, and that's too much. I can't have that in there. If I only have 1 half note, I have to have some other kind of note in there to fill out the rest of those beats, or I need to have a half rest in there. Okay? So here's how, let's play 4 half notes. We'll count off and then we'll play 4 half notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're going to actually slow this down because this is going to be really fast when we get up to our higher notes. Let's slow it down to, let's go really, really comfortable. Let's go to 75, okay? So I'll do the half notes again at 75. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. All right. Let's go and flip the page. We'll come back. We're now on page 60. And we're now at quarter notes. Now, we've actually already kind of talked about this. A quarter note gets 1 beat in 4/4 time. And we've got to have exactly 4 beats in a measure. So if we're going to use all quarter notes to fill that in, we've got to have 4 quarter notes. So this, if you've got your metronome set right, it should be clicking on essentially quarter notes. Okay, so we should play a note every time it beeps. So let's do 8 quarter notes in a row. We'll count off and then we'll do 8 quarter notes in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Moving to eighth notes. In eighth note, now we're dropping sort of below, we had full beats, right? We had 4 beats, 4 full beats, 2 whole full beats, 1 full beat, and now we're dropping into parts of beats. So an eighth note gets a half of a beat, okay? 1/2, not 1.5, but 1/2, 0.5, 0.5 amount of beats. So this means that 2/8 notes equals the same duration as 1/4 note. The way we count this is to add an and. So we'd say 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and. If you were tapping your hand, and before, let's do quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Eighth notes are essentially when your hand comes up. 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and. Okay, so it would be twice as fast as quarter notes. Just like a quarter note is actually twice as fast as a half note, and a half note twice as fast as a whole note. Now keep in mind that all of these kinds of notes are built in relation to each other, in proportion to each other. It does not actually tell you how fast or slow to play them in regards to tempo. Tempo is how fast or slow you're playing your song. So you could have a really fast piece that uses a lot of half notes, and the half notes actually end up being quite short because the tempo is so high. Alternatively, you could have a really, really slow piece and have lots of eighth notes, and the eighth notes actually end up being quite slow because your tempo is so slow. Now, in that slow tempo, if you also have half notes, those half notes are going to be way slower and last for much longer than the eighth notes because eighth notes last for a half of a beat, whereas a half note lasts for 2 beats. Okay, so they're in relation to each other, and all of that shifts faster or slower depending on your tempo. Sometimes people get a little confused about that. Okay, so an eighth note, we can have a total of 8 eighth notes in one measure in 4/4 time because they each get a half of a beat, and we have 4 beats in each measure. Basically, you divide each beat in half, and you get 2. Okay, so here's how this would sound. We'll do 2 full measures of eighth notes, so it'll be a total of 16? Yeah, 16. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Obviously, I would encourage you to be doing these little exercises with me so that you make sure that you understand what it is that I'm explaining and can play it on your lyre. If you don't want to do it on your lyre, you could clap them out. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's a perfectly good way to do it as well. Or simply tap on something. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Because we're just focusing on rhythm and not pitch on this particular lesson. Okay, and then finally we've got 16th notes in 4/4 time, and these are subdivided even more. Okay, and so a 16th note gets the duration of 1/4 of a beat. Okay, which means that in one beat you could have a maximum of 4 16th notes. One beat breaks down into 4 16th notes. So if you play 4 16th notes in one hand and you play 1/4 note in the other hand, they will start and end at the same time. Your 4 16th notes and your 1/4 note. Okay? Because a 16th note is 4 times faster than a quarter note. This means that you can have 16 16th notes in one measure in 4/4 time. You see where these names come from. So, the way we count this, we add a few more little sort of syllables into it. Rather than 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, which is the eighth notes, we count this as 1 E and a. 1 E and a. Each one of those is 1 16th note. So a full bar of all 16th notes would sound like this. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. Okay? So let's hear this. This is why we slowed it down. So here we go. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. That's a little fast. That's a little fast, but that's how it would go. Let me count it without playing it. I'll just tap it out so you can hear it. Let's wait for it to start. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. Okay, if you want to slow your metronome down more than that, then you're welcome to do that. But that's how fast it is. So you don't usually have a ton of 16th notes next to each other because it's very, very fast. But that's the 16th notes. So that's the shortest duration that we're going to talk about in this course, the whole note being the longest duration. Okay, that's 4/4 time. We're going to actually pause here for a second because I just want you to have a moment to put it all together. This is 4/4 time. Find a piece that's in 4/4 time and try and understand how these all go together. My recommendation, we'll do this with the example, but my recommendation would be to go ahead and write the counts underneath them. So if you've got a quarter note followed by 2 eighth notes followed by a half note, you'd write 1, 2, and 3, and in parentheses 4, or 3-4. That's another way to write a duration. Okay. So take a look at that. Come back when you're ready for 3/4 time. All right, we're looking at 3/4 time now. We're going to do the same thing, going through all these different notes in 3/4. Go ahead and make sure you change your metronome to have 3 bars. See if you can see that. 3 bars instead of 4. So it should sound like something like this. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And now we're going to look at these, each of these notes. I'm also going to add one of the dotted notes because it's pretty common in 3/4 time, and we actually already see it written here. So looking at whole notes in 3/4 time. Well, the short answer is you can't have whole notes in 3/4 time because a whole note gets 4 beats. And we still have that 4 at the bottom of the time signature, which again indicates that the quarter note gets 1 beat. And if that's the case, and we've got a whole note that gets 4 beats, it's too big for that measure. All right. What we would rather use, if we want to hold something for 4 beats, you would use a dotted half note. Now I explain what dots do on note to end rest a couple of pages over, but let me do it verbally here. Anytime you have a dot, let's just take it for the notes. This applies to the rest too, but anytime you have a dot attached to a note, the dot adds half of the amount of the note that it's attached to. So for example, if we have a dotted half note, which is what we see in this center column at the top, we know that a half note gets 2 beats. We know that now, okay? The dot will take half of 2, because that's what the half note equals, 2 beats. Take half of that and add it to that original duration. So we've got 2, and then what's half of 2? Well, that's 1. So we have 2 plus 1 equals 3. So at the end of the day, really you just need to know that a dotted half note equals 3 beats. This is very important for 3/4 time because it's kind of like the equivalent of a whole note in 4/4 time, where it takes up the entire measure because we have 3 beats in 3/4 time and a dotted half note equals 3 beats. Let me say one more word about dotted notes to give you an example. A dotted quarter note. Okay, well, a quarter note gets 1 beat, so we at least have 1 beat. And then the dot tells us we have to take half of that amount and add it to that. So half of 1 is 1/2, 0.5. So we have 1 plus a half, that's a half of a finger, is 1 1/2, 1.5. So a dotted quarter note gets 1 1/2 beats. Again, those are the 2 most common, a dotted half note and a dotted quarter note. Okay? So just so you know what those equal. All right? So looking at the whole note again, coming back to this little box, the only way to get 4 beats is to have what's called a tie. It's this line that looks like a slur, except it's slurring, quote unquote, to the same note. Well, you can't slur to the same note. You can't have legato to the same note. And so what it's actually telling you to do is to add the value, add the duration of those two notes together and hold it for that entire time. So rather than playing each note separately, 1, 2, 3, 1, rather you hold it for 4 beats because we're adding 3 plus 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or how you'd probably count it actually is 1, 2, 3, 1. Okay? So let's do that. Let's start by playing 2 dotted half notes, which again equals 3 beats. Let's do 2 of those, one right after the other. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Excuse me. So now we're just going to play one of the 4 beat example here, which will have 3 beats plus 1. So we'll just do that once. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1. Okay. Okay, let's move now to half notes. All right, so half notes in 3/4 time, they still get 2 beats. The duration of the notes in 3/4 time and 4/4 time are going to be the same. So a whole note is going to equal 4 beats. A dotted half note is going to equal 3 beats. A half note is going to equal 2, quarter, 1, eighth, a half, and a 16th, a fourth. That's all the same because that 4 is on the bottom of the time signature. The difference comes when how many of these can we fit? How many of each of these kind of notes can we fit in one measure? So we saw that already with the whole note. The half note is similar. We can fit 1 half note because 1 half note equals 2 beats, but we can't fit 2. In 4/4 time, we could fit 2 because 2 plus 2 is 4. But if we have 2 in 3/4 time, again, 2 plus 2 is 4. That's too much. We have to have just 3. So if you're going to have a half note, you this is a little bit of an error right here, actually. You actually wouldn't hold it for that 4th beat because there's no 4th beat in 4/4 time. It's 3/4 time. 3/4 time, excuse me. So if you're going to have a half note, then that quarter note has to follow it. Whether that extra beat, that 3rd beat, is a quarter note or an 8th note, 2 8th notes, or 4 16th notes. It doesn't matter. You cannot have another half note because you don't have enough space for it. So what we're going to do is let's go ahead and play this example where we have a half note plus 1 quarter note. We'll play that twice, so 2 measures worth. Okay? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Moving to quarter notes. This will be pretty straightforward. Now we can't fit 4 quarter notes in a 3/4 time piece, but we can fit 3. So just like in 4/4 time we had quarter notes just right on the beat, that's the same thing for 3/4 time. They each get 1 beat, and we have 3 of them in a measure. So let's do 2 measures worth of that, so 6 of them. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Sorry, I shouldn't let that ring. Okay. 8th notes and 16th notes are the same as they were in 4/4 time. Again, we have to just minimize the amount that we have in each measure. So an 8th note gets a half of a beat. We can fit 6 of them in 3/4 time. So let's do 2 measures worth of that. We'll do 12. We count them the same. 1 and 2 and 3 and. 1, 2, 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay. And then in 3/4 time with 16th notes, we can fit 12 of them. Yes, is that right? Yes, we can fit 12 of them in a measure. We count them the same way we did in 4/4 time. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a. I'm going to slow this down because that was a little fast last time. Let's do it to 65. we'll do, again, 2 measures worth of this. 1, 2, 3. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a. Not super realistic for the lyre, but it's just good to know what it is. Let's go ahead and tap that out. 1, 2, 3. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a. Okay, so that is 3/4 time. Again, the duration of the notes in 4/4 and 3/4 time are the same. All right, the amount of beats or partial beats that they get is the same. The only difference is how many can you put in each measure, and that will change the feel and the flow of the piece. We're going to pause now and then move to 6/8 time once you feel comfortable with that. Find a piece that's in 3/4 time. Practice with that. Take a look at how those different notes are divided, how those different measures look, and then come back when you're ready for 6/8 time. All right, let's look at 6/8 time now. I went ahead and moved my metronome up to 75 again. And the way that I have set mine up is I've got 6 beats. You need to make sure to have 6 beats on it, but I have made the first and the fourth beat sound different. Okay, so rather than just the first beat sounding different, which is what we did in 3/4 and 4/4, we're going to do that with the first and the fourth beat. So it'll sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I don't know why I just turned that off. Okay, in 6/8 time, let's review this again. We have 6 beats in each measure, but rather than it being quarter notes getting one beat, we have eighth notes getting one beat. All right, and so let's actually, just to help clarify this, let's flip the page and look at the eighth note section for just a moment. We'll come back to it a little bit later. But you can see this is the second from the bottom all the way on the right. We can get 6 eighth notes per measure when we're playing in 6/8 time. Again, because each of those is one beat. This is the most sort of simple way to understand. Rather than, it sort of compares to the quarter note in 4/4 and 3/4 time. See how we just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3 for those quarter notes? In the eighth notes, it's kind of the same thing for 6/8 time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have them in groupings of 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But even so, it's just helpful to see, okay, this looks very different. I've got eighth notes, but I'm not counting them as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and or anything like that. I'm giving each of them a full beat. All right, so let's back up then and look at whole notes. Again, the notation actually looks very similar to your 3/4 time because mathematically they, sort of divide into each other. And so what that means is that you really don't see whole notes at all. You actually technically can't see a whole note in 6/8 time because a whole note would get 8 beats, and that surpasses the amount of beats. We can only have 6 in a 6/8 time. And so instead, just like in the 3/4 time, we'd have a dotted half note plus a quarter note. Now, I said earlier that a dotted half note gets 3 beats. This is true when there's a 4 at the bottom of the time signature number, because in those time signatures, the quarter note gets 1 beat. When you have the eighth note getting 1 beat, it lasts twice as long, so it will get 6 beats rather than 3. Because a dotted half note in 6/8 time gets 6 beats, it fills up the entire measure in the same way that the dotted half note filled up in 3/4 time by getting 3 beats. Okay, so let's just play 2 dotted half notes in 6/8 time, and then we'll move from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's it. Easy peasy. You just hold it or let it ring for 6 beats. Okay. Yeah, we're going to leave that. Okay. Then half notes. Again, same kind of thing as what we had in the 3/4 time. We can't have 2 half notes because that would also be 8 beats in 6/8 time. And we can't have that. We have to have 6 beats. And so a half note in 6/8 time, instead of getting 2 beats, it gets 4 beats. This is not a terribly common note in 6/8 time because it throws off that split between the first 3 beats and the second 3 beats. What is much more common is actually using a dotted quarter note. So a dotted quarter note, again, I said a moment ago, in 4/4 time and 3/4 time, that gets 1.5 beats, 1.5 beats. Well, in 6/8 time, when the 8th note is getting 1 beat, it actually gets 3 beats, which is really helpful. So if you, what's more common than half notes would be dotted quarter notes in 6/8 time, because you can have a nice even split. You can have 2 dotted quarter notes, and that's 3 plus 3, which equals 6, which is what we're going for in this. So I'm actually going to play that. I'm going to deviate for a moment from the book. So let's play 2 measures worth of dotted quarter notes, which would be 4 dotted quarter notes. Let me let it do the round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now, if we did, that's dotted quarter notes. If we did want to play half notes, we'll play it just like is written, where we have the half note getting 4 beats, and then we'll follow that with a quarter note, which gets 2 beats in 6/8 time. This is going to feel a little funny because this is very uncommon in a certain sense for this time signature. It doesn't divide the beats up well. We'll do 2 measures of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Maybe some of you sort of felt that felt weird because we didn't play on the 4, we played on the 5 instead, and that kind of illustrates why it's not commonly used in that time signature. Okay, let's flip the page. We've got quarter notes now. Quarter notes in 6/8 time, each of them gets 2 beats. Okay, rather than 1 beat, they get 2 beats. This is commonly used in 6/8 time, and so we could have 3 quarter notes in 6/8 time. Again, it's really the same as 3/4 time, but the way that the beats are divided up is going to be different. Now, the way that this feels is also going to be different. It's going to feel more like triplets than it did. It didn't feel like triplets at all in 3/4 time because you're just playing on the beat. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's in 3/4 time. In 6/8 time, it's going to feel like triplets. Let me show you what I mean by that. Let's do this. We've got 2 measures. So we'll play a total of 6 quarter notes. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? So you have something more like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Which depends on the piece, but if you've got a lot of that, you're probably actually playing in 3/4, and you want to write your piece in 3/4 rather than 6/8, because again, 6/8 is divided into 2 main sections instead of 3. Okay, but quarter notes get 2 beats in 6/8 time. Okay, 8th notes we've already talked about. They each get a beat. So let's play 2 measures of 8th notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Then finally, 16th notes, they get a half of a beat in 6/8 time. Rather than a quarter of a beat, they get a half of a beat. So you could have a total of 12 of them in 6/8 time. And these we count just like we counted the 8th notes in 4/4 and 3/4 time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and. So let's do 2 measures worth of that. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and. Okay. Now that finishes off all of the information that we need to know. I know it's a lot. It's a lot. And so my recommendation, if you are just starting off, just start with one time signature. Study that. Listen to my examples. And then in a moment, we're going to do an example in each time signature. So if you've got the book with you, tying this a little tighter, if you've got the book with you, then just look at the example in 4/4 time and then do the practice in 4/4 time. Once you get that, and then look at maybe a piece that you're actually playing in 4/4 time. Then when you got that, then switch to 3/4. Go through the information again, go to the example on page 61, do the practice on 61, 62, etc. Then move to 6/8 and do it from there. Okay. Okay, we're going to come back and I'm going to play each of the examples for you. I'm not going to play it on the lyre because it's a little bit harder to hear. I'm going to tap it out for you, but we'll come back. So make sure you're pretty steady on that information before we move forward. Again, I'll illustrate what it looks like to combine these different rhythms within each time signature. That's what we'll do next. Okay, so now let's take a look at our examples in each of these time signatures and what it looks like to combine them, to combine the different types of rhythms and notes. All right, I'm going to use a metronome and I'm going to tap it out. The way that it's typically tapped and counted out is you will count each beat, okay? I am actually going to count, I'll just say, for example, in 4/4 time, 1, 2, 3, 4. I will count it with the metronome, which I have on 75. And I will also, when I get to something like an 8th note or a 16th note, I will count the ands or e anda with that to help you understand how that works. Now, I've written in how you would count it out loud, okay? The way in which you tap it is you would tap only, or clap. I'm going to tap just so you can hear the metronome. And I think it's a little easier. You will tap only when you would play the note. So you don't tap on rests and you don't tap twice. For example, if I have a half note, I would not go 1, 2. I'd go 1, 2. I'd kind of hold it down to indicate that I hold that for 2 beats. Okay? So just to take as a quick example, this first measure, we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4. All right? So I've got my metronome set on 75. What I would do before this is I would study all these different notes and rhythms. We also have a triplet in here, so you'll hear how that sounds. And then I'm going to go ahead and tap and play, or tap and count that whole line. Before I do that, if you want to try and do that on your own, go for it. Then I will do it, and then I would try, if I were you, I would try and do it with me, and then on your own. Okay? These are rather complicated, well, not complicated, but they are, most rhythms have some repetition to them, some patterns, which most of music it really is. But these are not that way, and so they're kind of awkward, more awkward than they normally would be. But hopefully it's to just really illustrate, give you some good examples of what all these sort of different combinations could be. Okay, so we're going to do that first example in 4/4 time. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E and a 2, 3, 4, and 1, triplet 3, 4, and. Okay, I'm going to do that again actually because I want to do it even slower for you to be able to do it with me. The way we count triplet is literally just to say triplet. I didn't cover that a second ago. So let's drop this down to like 60. Drop it down to 60 and go from there. Same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E and a 2, 3, 4, and 1, triplet 3, 4, and. Okay. All right, that's 4/4 time. Now we're going to look at 3/4 time. I'm going to adjust my metronome to get 3 beats. I'm going to move it back up to 75, and then I'll drop it down to 60 again. Let me draw your attention to one quick thing. This is in the 4th measure, 1, 2, 3, the 4th measure. What you will see here in the last two notes, there's a bar connecting them, but what that actually is a dotted 8th note combined with 1/16th note. Okay? And you can see the counting underneath it. You have 3 E and as one note, which is the dotted 8th note, and then the of the 3 E and is its own note, which is a 16th note. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3 E and a 1, 2, 3 E and a 1, 2, triplet 1, 2, 3, 1 E and a 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, let's drop that down to 60. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3 E and a 1, 2, 3 E and a 1, 2, triplet 1, 2, 3, 1 E and a 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. If you're having trouble with any particular measure, just work on that measure and make sure you understand how that particular rhythm works. And then add it into maybe 2 measures, something like that. Okay, let's move now to 6/8. Let me change my metronome to reflect that. 6 beats. Okay. Okay, back up to 75 on the metronome. Here's the example for 6/8. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That was already decently slow, but let's go ahead and do 60 again, just for simplicity's sake. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, went up a little early on that last one. Okay, let's pause there, and then I'll say a word or two about the practice, and then we will close. Okay, just a quick word about the practice. There are technically 3 different exercises. Technically 4 different exercises. The first 2 are very similar, where essentially I have already written the notation out, the rhythmic notation out, and you are simply to practice, just like you really did on the examples above, to practice how those should sound by tapping them out or playing them on the lyre. That's the first exercise. The second one is the same as the first, except it adds 2 different hands in there. Now, I probably wouldn't try and play this on the lyre, though you could, but basically what you want to do is you want to play the bottom staff with your left hand and your, or whatever you usually play the bass with, and then the top staff with your right hand. And this is to help get you to be able to do different rhythms in each hand. Okay? So definitely do exercise 1 before doing exercise 2. If you prefer exercise 3, you could start with this. This, though, it sort of depends on how you want to do it. I didn't think that was the best order because I wanted you to see and understand and be confident that you were getting the notation right. That you were getting those rhythms right. That's why I put them in there myself. So exercise 3 has you put them in there, and then go ahead and count those out, tap them out, all that kind of stuff with that. So if you want practice writing it out and figuring out the counts yourself, if that helps you, then you could start with 3. But otherwise, I would stick with the order that it's already in. And then finally, exercise 4 is optional, but it is, I think it's a really good option, which is true, I do. But I would take a piece that you're already working on or that you want to learn and do with that piece what you've already done with exercise 3. That is, write down underneath the notation, okay, what are the beats that each of these notes is getting? Practice tapping it out and then work on the song. Tapping it out or just playing it on a single note helps to separate pitch from rhythm, and that's really helpful when you're first learning a piece, because they're 2 different aspects and we need to combine them, of course, but in order to do that, it's helpful to focus on one versus the other. Okay, this has been, I think, a very long video. I'm a little bit tired, but I hope, and then there's an answer key on page 64 for exercise 3. But we are through really most of the difficult stuff. In lesson 4, we're going to talk about a few other kind of different notations. We go into things like broken chords, playing in swing time, I can't think of the word, grace notes, all that kind of stuff. And then lesson 5 is just roadmap notation, so repeats and codas and stuff like that. So lesson 2 and lesson 3 really are the kind of heavy hitters on this part. So I say that so that you're not thinking, oh my gosh, these next several lessons, are they going to be just as intense? So the answer is no. These are the most intensive ones because we're really focusing on pitch and rhythm, which is what all music is really comprised of. And so learning how to read that on sheet music is the nuts and bolts of sheet music. Take your time. I give you all the encouragement that I can. It does take time. So if you can't get it right off the bat, don't worry about it. Take simple pieces, apply the concepts that you're learning here, and look for other teachers around as well that maybe can help you out. Maybe a friend who knows how to read sheet music, and you can kind of sort of have fun together utilizing this knowledge in a playful and joyful way. So let me know if you have any questions. I hope you're still enjoying it, and I hope it's very useful for you. Feel free to reach out if you need to. Thank you so much, and God bless you. May the peace of Christ be with you.